Good evening, everyone. It is now 7:45, and I will call this special work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. This meeting is being conducted both in person and online, and members of the public may attend in person if they so desire, or the public can watch this meeting online on burnsvillemn.gov/meeting or Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. And more information about the items that's been presented this evening can be found out on our meeting's webpage and in the council agenda packet. And the first item on our special work session is the strategic plans, recreation and facilities, and community development. And presenting tonight, Bethany, are you teeing this up? And then go to Garrett? Or are you city manager doing it?
I can gladly do that, Mayor. Mayor, members of the council, just by way of a reminder, and certainly for the community, our expanded budget process has included now for the last couple of years department presentations. This year, those department presentations are all about 3-year strategic plans, really the work plans that align the work that each of our functional areas are doing directly to your strategic priorities. So at the conclusion of this budget process, for the first time in Burnsville's history, we not only will have a high-level strategic plan for the organization, but department plans that align with it. So the purpose tonight is for our department directors of these two areas to walk through their strategic plans. These were built in collaborative processes across our teams. Certainly, as we share information on our operations, we're open to answering any questions that you might have, but really our intention is to make sure that you and the community are well informed about our operations as we continue through the budget process this year. Speaking of the budget process, last thing that I'll say, our budget landing page is available not only to you, but to the community, burnsvillemn.gov/budget. On that page, you'll be able to find all of the resources in front of you, a video of tonight's meeting, previous meetings, as well as the slide decks, and of course our strategic plans, as that is our source of information and primary way to make sure that everyone has access to what we're talking about this evening. So with that, I will turn it over to Garrett, who I think is up first.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. In general, my approach outside of you thinking about a registration or a reservation of a facility is that if you aren't thinking about our staff, that means we're doing a good job. And by that I mean if you went to Party on the Plaza last Thursday, you went down there, it was well organized, it was fun, and you thought about your experience that you had, not about us as staff. If you go to the ice center or the golf course, it's clean, well maintained, and they're ready for you. When you arrive to a room, it's set up correctly, everything's working, and it's clean, and it's exactly the way you want it. But tonight is different because about once a year, I get to actually brag about our staff and talk about not only the great work that they do, but also we are often collaborating with a lot of people across this organization and other departments to help us do the things that we do. And so our mission, the Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Department, exists to provide great spaces, places, events, and activities for the community and visitors to enjoy, is really what our staff do and what a lot of people in this organization help us to accomplish, and the volunteers and our partners that we have out in the community as well. So where are we now? Our parks, when it comes to parks, our team is heavily involved in understanding the needs of the users and trying to identify solutions that meet their needs. By that, we will be leading the Park and Rec System Master Plan. We lead park amenities projects that are things that are new or renovations out in the park system. And just as importantly, but not talked about a lot, I mean, we take phone calls and emails on a regular basis of people experiencing things or want to experience things in our park system, and we are helping them to identify solutions and make sure that the right resources and people are aware of the things that need to be accomplished. Our recreation staff organize the programs and events out in the parks. They're doing the youth, adult, family special event activities, community events like Party on the Plaza. We're doing engagement sessions as pop-up parks and different things like that throughout the summer. We take the reservations, as I mentioned, that help to connect our residents to the park amenities that they're looking to use. And then, of course, we manage the Burnsville Ice Center and the golf course. From a facilities standpoint, we're the staff that are helping to keep these buildings that we operate out of and that we use healthy and safe and in good condition. And we make sure that they're clean and safe, not only for staff on a daily basis, but for the community as they come in and out of those facilities. Even though the Parks Group, the Rec Group, and the Facilities Group kind of do a lot of different things, the strategic priorities that are the council's strategic priorities are really the heart and soul and the foundation of what we do. From a safety perspective, I was thinking about Party on the Plaza again, just because it's fresh in my mind. The amount of time that went into planning to make sure that things are in the right place, that people can navigate safely, that everything is set up and organized right going into the event, is safe and secure, to actually then the day of, the management, having the right people there, the right number of volunteers, the right safety presence, things like that. That happens on major events, but it also happens on basic things like our Kids of Summer program, on the number of staff we should have and protocols and different things that help us deal with that. Our park projects, the design piece is filled with safety considerations as we try to identify what's the location, what materials do we use, how is it organized, set up. Facility projects, the same thing. We look at, you take something as simple as replacing carpet. There are things related to odor and smell and things like that. They have to be planned out properly. They have to be set up properly. People have to be notified about how and when they can use the building and whatnot. And then, of course, daily cleaning and maintenance of our grounds. You think about a winter snowstorm, when you walk in and out of the building, hopefully we have taken care of those spaces appropriately so you can safely travel to and from. From a community engagement piece, I've said it in the past, but that's really the heart and soul of what we do. We have for years been liaisons to groups. We have for years partnered with the community to deliver services. And we are constantly looking for feedback from our existing participants. We regularly get emails and phone calls about ideas, and we try to evaluate how we can effectively incorporate those if those are good ideas. And then, as I mentioned, we go out into the park system and just talk to users and find out what they're doing and why they're doing it and how their experience has been. Organizational culture, in addition to all the great stuff at Burnsville University, each one of our staff is encouraged to be part of local, state, and even national professional organizations that are appropriate for them. And each staff person should also have an annual training plan. Some of it is required because of their positions that they have to fulfill. But we want to see our folks continue to learn and grow and get better, and that's just a basic expectation. Community vibrancy. Our staff are regularly offering programs in our community that we have done in the past that are still relevant, that bring people together. And we're also always looking for new possibilities to enhance that community experience. With the park system over 30 years old, we're looking, I think in our previous meeting, we talked about what do we do with this amenity and is it still relevant? If so, and if we're replacing it with a similar thing, how do we make it cool? At Wolk Park a couple years ago, we put in a zip line that we just didn't have something like that in our park system. And then we've done some more bold things like having one of the first dog parks in the area or cliff end splash pad, even our archery range replacement. I mean, we did it and we did it well thanks to council support, and it's one of the better ones in the metro area, if not the state. And then even like Red Oak pickleball and things like that. So trying to continue to keep up with trends that are sustainable and are not just here for a short period of time. And then, facilities are really can be the heart and soul of providing a great experience for people, but it's also an important part of well-being and quality of life for our employees on a daily basis. So making sure that we are taking care of them well, and they are places that people want to come to and be at all day long. Infrastructure, our staff are involved in designing, constructing our park facility, our park projects and our facility projects. We care for them, and we're regularly evaluating and responding to park and facilities needs to make sure that they're welcoming, that there's ADA requirements being met, and that we're meeting the needs of the community. And then last is sustainability. Whether it's design and selection of materials, either for cleaning or for a project that are sustainable, or it could be identifying and participating in energy-saving projects that save the city money long-term. That can be a rebate program like Dakota Electric's Energy Wise program, or it can be something as substantial as the Solar Gardens participation that we're involved in. And so we research those, we bring those forward as opportunities to continue to save money and energy. And then from a cleaning perspective, we're purchasing cleaning projects and equipment that allow us to clean for human health without harming the environment. Where are we going? Our goal is to continue to provide great experiences both now and into the future, and we do that by annually evaluating the programs and events that we offer, pay attention to the trends, and listen to our community needs and our partners to help do that. As mentioned before, when park amenities reach the end of life, we are evaluating how and if they should be replaced. We're currently working on both a park inventory and conditions project and a facilities condition and inventory assessment. And we're going to use that to help leadership make good decisions for the future. We maintain and clean our facilities to make sure that they're safe and healthy and have a lower impact on the environment with the things that we're using to do it. And most importantly, I think, as I mentioned before, I'd like to see our team always learning, and not only from past experiences, but from surrounding communities, from neighboring communities, from our own community, on what people are thinking and hearing, and evaluating how we can possibly implement some of those ideas. How will we get there? I truly believe our staff lives out the ideas of innovation, collaboration, and excellence, which is our values. I see it in our daily work on a regular basis, and so we will continue to engage our community and provide great programs and events and continue to evaluate what the needs are of our community. We will continue to operate and maintain our facilities and try to keep them as healthy and safe and well-maintained as we possibly can. We'll identify and design and construct key infrastructure improvements. And again, how do we meet the needs both of the community and this organization? What do those improvements look like? When they have been identified, we'll be ready to step forward and be a part in leading that. And then, of course, we work with the organization to help improve our employee engagement and our workplace culture. So this slide kind of lays out what a year one looks like for us. When it comes to our recreation team, we're looking at our park system master plan. Again, we are out and about at different parks throughout the community all summer long. We, in partnership with the MRPA, work with other communities to find out, hey, what are some of your best programs, events, facilities that you have that your community loves? We collect that from a variety of communities. We look at it and use it internally, but then we also work with them to share it with the rest of the state of Minnesota, and we've been doing that for a few years now. Again, we work on enhancing our recreation and facilities program. I think recently we did an update to some of the out-facing the way that people connect with possibly reserving our facilities out in the community. And there's some bugs and different things, right? And so as you come across those, you you evaluate it and you correct it and you get it to be as good as you can. And so that's one of the things that we're working on right now and will until it's correct. And then we're always looking to co-host new events. I think I mentioned before, we've got the Minnesota Wild are partnering with the Ice Center for a street hockey program. The North American Unicycle Championship is going to be over at the skate park. And then we just recently had a foundation reach out to us, and they want to do free pickleball for youth ages 5 to 12 out at Red Oak. So we'll be doing that in July. And those are just the types of things that we thrive on. We love to try to find partners and get people exposed to not only our park system, but help to create great experiences there. The public spaces, again, I talked about the inventories and assessments that we're doing. We're still in the middle of our facility pre-design and identifying appropriate land for Fire Station 2. We have numerous park facility CIP projects, and then a number of different things from an energy audit and even the Autobahn, the project that takes place out at Burnhamwood and whatnot. So, and then from our maintenance side of things, we have a green cleaning program manual. Again, that's really about making sure that we select good equipment, that we select good materials, that when we are cleaning our facilities, they're not only safe for the people that are here, but they help to reduce the impact on the environment as well. Year 2 and 3, again, is to continue to deliver on the things that we've promised in year 1, since some of the stuff takes some time. And then we'll start to implement the findings of those things. And as I mentioned before, we're always looking for new opportunities to continue to enhance events and things like that out in the community. And then finally, just meeting community needs. When it comes to project management, our major facilities that we operate out of as an organization and our park system are both 30 to 40 years old in many cases. And so our facilities and parks are no different than your homes and your cars. The older that they get, the more things you need to replace and take care of. And so it takes time to do that. It takes time to come up with the plan. It takes time to engage people in the community. And then it takes time to complete the project. So we are staring at a lot of projects and finding the people power, even if the financial opportunities are there to do it. Just you can only manage so many projects and do the other things. From a vibrancy and engagement piece, when we did the organizational analysis a few years ago, I boldly stated that our department did not need any staff.
Yes,
And
I heard you.
also said with the caveat that as long as expectations on our services remain the same, we should be fine. And that didn't last very long. So just, the desire, and it is a great desire, but the most time-consuming thing that we do for people in our department is the engagement piece, right? And so as we're looking to engage more and to do more new things, that also takes time. The easiest things that we do are repeating what we did last year and then tweaking it a little. That doesn't take nearly as much time as researching, engaging, coming up with a plan, and implementing new things. So as that desire continues to grow, it takes people power and time to do that kind of stuff. And then from the operations and maintenance piece, whether our organization makes a strategic choice to stay the course as is, or if we're looking to do projects, if we stay as we are, it's going to take people there's going to be more things, as I mentioned, that come up that are going to be issues, and it's going to take time to do those projects. If we do something new, it's probably going to be bigger. And so there's going to be more space to maintain. And then it's also, that desire to keep something new looking in good shape is going to take longer, right? Not that trying to keep things that have been around for 30 years looking good doesn't take a lot of time too, but, there's just going to be needs associated with that. So with that, I know my colleagues have told me that I had a very tight time limit of 15 minutes, and I see I went to 17 minutes, so I cut myself off.
Well, before you cut yourself off, you know, you've identified all of the things that are going well and what you're going to be doing. Tell us about what's not going well, because when we're looking at a capital improvements plan that you talked about and things with a system that is 30 to 40 years old. So what's not going well, and how do we as mayor and council, when we look at the budget going forward, what does that mean? I mean, you talked about what you're going to be accomplishing in 23, 24, and 25. And then you had 3 pillars, and I like this, what staff has done with looking at the most important things that align with our strategic plan, and you have 3 pillars. Thank you, Bethany, for doing that. And then it's there, but what's not going well?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, one of the things, and again, I know that this year we've started the inventory and assessment process. That's been on the minds of staff for a while to do. And what we are more aware of than ever before, as we're doing this pre-design study and things like that, is that since COVID, the inflationary rate and the cost of, 4% used to be an appropriate inflationary thing from a budget perspective from year to year. In 2021, don't quote me on this, but roughly 20% increase in project costs, and there was the same increase in 2022, right? We didn't adjust our budgets to reflect that in our planning process. We knew we needed to, but that was a huge jump, right? So just those inflationary costs make it more difficult to complete the projects that we have with the budget that we have. Supply chain issues are a challenge. I'll be looking to replace a couple playgrounds this year, and whoever we end up selecting, it's going to take longer than it used to get that equipment in. So things just take more time. They're out there more. I talked about our community's changing, and rightfully so. There's an interest in meeting the community needs and changing programs and doing things. That takes time and whatnot. And I talked about our facilities and the conditions that they're in, and as we are taking on summer interns and different things, where we're putting all the people is a challenge, right? And so I get to work with all the departments. I'm the spaces are or whatever, right? I get that fun job of trying to help, figure out what do we do and what space do we need to repurpose that is going to obviously have an impact on someone in some way or another, right? I mean, is it going to impact the community? Is it going to impact the department? And so those are all challenges that we're facing on a daily basis. And I think the last thing is just things are so much better than they were year one after the pandemic, but still, and we're in a better position recruiting part-time staff. But still, we'd love to have our concession stand open at the beach, and we just can't get people down there to do it, right? There's certain positions and things like that that are hard to fill, to get fully staffed and make sure that we're providing that experience and that service that customers that they should expect, so.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Garrett? Yeah, Councilmember Keeley.
I know we've been holding up a lot of projects and decisions on some parks capital money in anticipation of the rec system master plan, park and rec master plan. And it's going to take us all year to develop it, and then all year next year to conduct it. And we won't be able to make any decisions and get some things decided on where some capital money is going to get spent and some other things until 2025, or maybe close to 2020, end of 2024, so maybe a year from now. But that just seems like a prolonged period of time to just take a full inventory and do a study. Are we doing it internally, or are we hiring a
Am I
consultant?
correct that the parks that we already approved, you're still working on, correct?
If we are doing just a standard, I don't want to contradict myself, we never just replace something exactly as is. But
Because
if
you
we are
have some that
replacing
you're
a
gonna build-
playground with a playground, that type of project has, the last we met, yes, that we are moving forward with those
Yeah.
types
I
of
think you have
replacements.
two that's on the books, Jenny? You have two parks on the books to be replaced?
Two playgrounds are, yes, that's just an example. So, yeah, those types of amenities we are replacing.
Yeah, it's
So,
like maintenance. I'm talking
Yep.
about like new.
Yep.
You know, like the waste management, 1.9 million. We had some discussions in preparation. We put that on hold. There was a pickleball court in Allen Magnet that, did we go forward with that or did we put that on hold?
That is currently on hold.
That's on hold and it's gonna wait for another year and a half before we can make a decision. I don't know, is that normal? It just seems like a really long timeline, a full year to develop the scope, then a full year to conduct it. And the third year is when we are actually gonna do something with it. Do they normally take that long? Maybe I'm missing something, but it seems like a abnormally long, prolonged period of time to put a study together so we can make some decisions.
So Councilmember Keeley, members of the council, certainly it's longer than I would have hoped. We are coming back to you, so actually, my entire day today was all capital budget related with our department directors. So we've gone through and had our kind of our first round of department meetings with directors on our capital budgets. We'll be back with you in July. Your July budget work session is all about CIP. That's where we'll start to talk about 2024 and beyond. We did pause the one project at Alamagnet. It was looking to be about $1 million in investment, and knowing the challenges that we have not only across the system of competing interests on new things to invest in, but also how are we going to operate and maintain those investments over the course of time. We did want some time to study that. I think the reality of pausing projects or having those discussions, right, that's a matter of the council's discretion. So as early as July, we can certainly start those conversations up, and I would expect that you all would give us some direction on what you might want to see happen in the interim. I think the reality is it's going to be by the next budget process, so next year at this time, where we'll have the information that I really feel needs to be in front of you, right? The current inventory, the assessment of the condition of our park system, and then ultimately what the community is saying through more robust engagement in a new parks plan that will help us really make longer term decisions. But certainly heard that it is a project that is taking longer than I would have hoped.
Yeah. And I know that it's a very distinct, as Jenny Rhodey will point out, maintenance and replacement is different than new expansion, right? And so we know that the new money from waste management and other needs to go to, expansion. It can't just go, hey, let's just start using that money to replace these playgrounds, right? So they're two very distinctive things. So maintaining what we're doing and the budget demands for that to replace aging assets is one thing. I'm really kind of talking about that global plan so we can
Yeah.
determine what we're going to do with those new monies that have to be spent on things that are related to expanding accessibility or expanding offerings. And it looks like we're going to have to wait till another year
Well,
before we even start to have
because
that
there are some
discussion.
competing interests. For
Oh, yeah,
instance,
absolutely. Yeah, that's why I wanted to
Kelleher
make-
Park really needs, and we already have $1 million something that's on the books right now. Greg,
For what, Madam Mayor?
for parks replacement.
For Kelleher Park?
Well, Kelleher Park is going to be like $1 million to do that whole thing, isn't it?
Well, it depending on what you're talking about
It's
doing,
a-
it could be
yeah.
significantly more than that.
Because
Yes.
it is so bad, and we can't have parks go, and that's why I'm looking forward to the comprehensive plan, because we can't allow parks to go that far that it's gonna cost us over $1 million to redesign and to meet the needs.
Maintain it basically, right? You keep
Well,
it-
meet the needs and then maintain into the future, because you can't just build something and not maintain it. So-
Councilmember Keeley, if I may, so, the desire to kind of re-engage our community was in December of 2022. At that time, we did not, the engagement piece, as I talked about, is one of the most, and things have changed since 2017 in our community and how you can reach the community, right? There are different resources, there's different methods. We did not have a budget to do a community engagement piece that's really gonna give us good information, right? So, since that was a December 2022 piece, staff are ready and have a plan in place. One of our neighbors has been doing something similar to what I think council would like to see, and they are a year into it. So, and the dollar amount is pretty significant to do a robust engagement process, right? So to properly establish a budget, to have a good plan in place, that didn't take a full year to do, but it's just how it fits into the budget and then how we can prepare for that particular project. So, the inventory and things like that, that can happen quicker. Some of that's internal, some of it's with a consultant, but it's not nearly as time consuming as really doing a great community engagement process. So, and there are other communities that are doing similar things that have similar type of timelines.
Well, I know that there's a lot of dynamics at play. We talked about some earlier in our work session about the changing needs and participation levels and what is emerging and growing significantly and what is contracting in demand. And so I would assume all of that will come out of this deep study. So I guess we just have to wait. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, we might as well do it well and do it.
Well, I want to do it right, yes.
Do it well and do it right.
When I saw this 23, 24, and 25, I went, wow, that's a long.
But we've never been given a timeline before on projects, the way that it's outlined for us.
Yeah, we got dramatically better
Yeah,
information. now.
and so this allows us to see what's happening in operations.
And I can, Councilmember Keeley, to your question, I can understand a concern about timeline. I share the timing concern. It is not ideal for us to be another year in before we're having some of those robust long-term system conversations. Again, I would say it's the council's direction and deference. If you don't want to wait, we certainly can move projects forward. I would encourage the council to work through this process with us, because I do think it will prepare us to much better reflect the community's needs and our own park system infrastructure needs with that information. And at the same time, the community has needs right now, and I get that, and I think we're gonna have to wrestle through that conversation as part of the CIP process this
I
year.
think when we talked about, when we voted on delaying the Allen Magnet pickleball court, I had no idea that this is gonna be the timeline.
Yep.
If you'd have said, okay, just be aware, it would be 2025 before we come back and actually have that decision back in front of you where you're gonna be talking. Because we need 2023 and 2024 to go this route. I don't think we should be waiting that long to put in another pickleball court. I would have changed my vote to say, let's go forward with it and just live with the consequences in the greater plan, because it doesn't seem to me today, especially now going around the parks and reading about the pickleball demand and other cities putting in pickleball courts, et cetera. It's just, it is a
Well, they're
red hot
talking
demand.
about it, and Apple Valley's putting it on a referendum.
Yeah, I mean, because
So
they're going
it's
big,
not-
right?
so-
They're going big,
So
but
everybody's doing it differently.
it's-
We want to do it thoughtfully.
true, but waiting another 2 years is, I don't think, the right thing to do with that pickleball court. I think if I'd have known this, I would have said, no, let's move that forward, and then everything else can wait. But that is the hottest demand park product that we have, and we're strangling the supply through a prolonged process for the greater good. I get it, it's a greater good, but that project is suffering as a result, and I don't think it's I don't think it's the right decision to make based on what I've seen now, put it that way.
Well, then
I would change my
yeah.
vote and say, let's put it in.
Well, because then I would argue, so we'll do that for pickleball because there's louder voices, and then down in Kelleher, because they live in mobile homes and they don't have a voice or access to us, they don't get what they need down in that area?
Well, this pickleball court in Alley Magnet was gonna go forward. We stopped it because we wanted a
Because
comprehensive
of the
plan.
cost, with some,
I think we should not have stopped it, let's put it that way.
Well-
That's just where I'm at today. That, now that I know what I know, I would have advocated strongly that we move forward and put that pickleball court in. We're looking like a fool as a city compared to other cities. We're just sitting here going, nah, we know pickleball's red hot, but sorry, you're gonna have to wait a couple years because we're doing a comprehensive study. They're going, what is wrong with you? It is that obvious, it's that big,
Garrett,
and the
how many
demand is that
pickleball
great.
courts do we have in Burnsville that you have transitioned? Because I know, I read it in Council Weekly, how many,
Madam
So-
Mayor, we have 6 dedicated pickleball courts that are pickleball only. And next to those 6, we have 2 that are laid out like legitimate pickleball courts, but you have to put a temporary net in. So our total, I would argue, is 8.
how many?
8
8,
is what I would suggest.
8 courts. And you have, aren't those 2 out on the west side?
No, all 8 of them are at Red Oak Park. That is the only place that we have dedicated pickleball
Yeah.
courts.
Okay, then I might have misread something.
We
But
we
I
do
will go
have,
back, huh?
we do have a number of park locations that have tennis courts that also have outlines of a pickleball court, but they use a tennis net. The real pickleball players do not consider those to be pickleball courts. That is more just a recreational, get used to the game type of thing. So we did that for several years before we put in Red Oak, just to kind of meet those demands before we had the resources to put in legitimate pickleball courts. But our total legitimate pickleball courts is 8.
Okay.
Garrett, didn't you say in a couple meetings ago that you had long-term plans to have pickleball courts in every quadrant of the city?
Yes, Councilmember Gustafson, my personal belief was having inclusive playgrounds and pickleball court access in the 4 quadrants of our city
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
an appropriate use of our park space.
Yeah,
I agree.
and that's why understanding a comprehensive plan
Oh, I-
and
I
how we
get it. I
plan
get
for
that
it.
part. And I know that you've been
Yeah.
talking about expanding our pickleball for a while anyways.
Yeah. Okay, all righty,
Thank you.
is that it? Thank you so much, Garrett.
So,
Then-
thank you for your time.
The next one is community development. Jeff? Do you have any remarks? No? Okay.
Give us a moment, Mayor, to
Jeff,
switch the
it's-
presentation. There we go.
Jeff Gustafson needs to tell you something.
He took up all your time, you only have 7 minutes.
Yeah, he blew the timer.
17. I timed it so you guys couldn't say differently.
It's a minute per slide, Jeff.
Let's go. I'll go under 15. How about that? Thank you, Mayor and Council. Oh, there we go. So I'm happy to talk about the community development strategic plan as it informs the 2024 budget. Just quick overview on community development. I know you know all the things we're doing in community development, but where are we now? I think at its core, community development is a department that everybody is involved in providing direct service to the community of Burnsville. And we do that by working collaboratively with businesses, with residents, with stakeholders, and with partners, a variety of partners, to really ultimately implement the council's policies, our ordinances, and regulations with the goal of helping to kind of grow and develop Burnsville. That's kind of what we do at a core in community development. In terms of where we're going, I think in our strategic plan, it echoes the community vibrancy strategic plan quite strongly, because a lot of what we do is focused on the kind of the direct community vibrancy of building places that enhance our community of Burnsville, and doing that by focusing on economic development and growth, focusing on housing, which we'll talk about in our plan, and also just ensuring that we're always enhancing our services to the community and how we deliver them on a regular basis. And then how we're going to get there is to just continue to emphasize the importance of collaboration, partnerships, and frankly, service. I think that's a key component of how we'll be successful in community development, is always keeping that lens of service to the community at our forefront and in our decision making. I kind of already said this, but I think you can really simply say what community development does to get in less than a minute on one slide. We collaborate with community to develop and grow Burnsville. I think that it's as simple as that of what community development does. We collaborate with community to develop and grow Burnsville. So there are 3 service teams in community development, and it's really structured that way. I know we've shared a little bit about the kind of refocusing of code enforcement to neighborhood services. We've put that in our strategic plan, and that's kind of a service team we have. It's really focused in 2 primary service areas: rental licensing and inspections, and then property maintenance code. So those are kind of the 2 primary functions that are in our neighborhood services team. And then we have our planning and economic development team. It's exactly as it says. Planning focuses on developing and implementing our 2040 comprehensive plan, certainly building some capacity for the future comp plans, but then ultimately administering our ordinances and our zoning and subdivision regulations, facilitating the development and redevelopment process to drive forward the outcomes in that comp plan. And then our economic development function is focused on, frankly, just building relationships with the business community to support them and to grow the business community in Burnsville. That's really what economic development is at its base. And then I think another function that is important to highlight is a big work of our planning and economic development team is supporting our commissions. We have the Planning Commission and Economic Development Commission, which is a really primary task that they have. And then our third service team is our building safety. I know there's also we'll talk a little bit about kind of future outcomes of the name of that service, but that's really around building permitting, so ensuring construction is safe and accessible in Burnsville, and then also doing the on-site kind of construction inspections around the state building code. So those are the 3 teams in community development and the core functions and services that we're providing to Burnsville. This was frankly a pretty straightforward exercise for us, right? To tie what we're doing to our strategic priorities was pretty easy to do, just because of the work we do. Certainly ties to all of them and reflects those strategic priorities quite obviously, frankly. In terms of safety, that's a core of what we do, ensuring that we have safe and healthy homes and businesses. That's the purpose of building safety functions, and certainly our neighborhood services function is safe and healthy. On community engagement, we are, I know this is a strong focus in community development of building relationships, reaching out and working with stakeholders, but also kind of working with community and educating and providing that service with and along with our community. And then also I would just say that's our partnership piece, right? We work with a lot of other organizations, other agencies to partner on initiatives and on our services. I know our team is committed to organizational culture and being a part of that and wanting to develop and grow and consistently improve. And I see that. I see a department that strongly invests in their own development and wants to continuously do that. And I also know it's important for us to partner. We can't be successful in our work if we're not partnering and supporting the entire organization and the other departments, ensuring the delivery of all of the organization services. I talked about community vibrancy. It's core of what we do in community development. It's at its real core, supporting the growth and development of our economy, of our housing stock, and promoting those kind of strong neighborhoods, and community vitality is essentially what we do. On infrastructure, I think, I was thinking about this. We often think about the public infrastructure, right? It's a core thing of what cities do is provide public infrastructure. But I think in community development, you can also think of private infrastructure, not just private roads and stuff, but also housing is infrastructure. I mean, housing is a core infrastructure that we don't directly provide. We're not a housing provider. We don't build housing. We don't provide housing services. But it is a core service that is provided in Burnsville that we are directly related in. So I think of housing and buildings as infrastructure to support our community and our community vision. And then certainly on sustainability, we are promoting healthy, sustainable, and safe buildings and neighborhoods. It's important to us. So where are we going? When we talked about the 3 most important things that we should be focusing on community development, we pretty strongly landed on these 3 areas. So the first one is supporting economic development in Burnsville, and I'll talk more about that. The second is to support investments in housing in Burnsville. And then the third is to be successful, we need to focus and always keep in our forefront on how we are delivering the services to the community across all of our service teams. And that's probably what this says. So we'll just skip to the next slide here. There we go. So let's talk a little bit about how we think we should do that. To start with kind of the supporting economic development in Burnsville. I know we talked about in the all-day offsite, the leadership playbook, and one of the key items being in there is an update of our economic development strategic plan. And so we thought that was important to include in here. And so that's certainly one of the key outcomes in year one, is reviewing our current economic development strategic plan. Where are we at? What's working well? What's not? We've done some of that work already with our Economic Development Commission. And then second, to really do what I'm now calling kind of an economic development strategic framework, which is to have a kind of a robust new plan moving forward of economic development. What we think is important is that strategic priority of community engagement. We think that needs to be a real core component of that plan to be developed along with the input we get from our stakeholders in our community. And then, so those are kind of the three areas in economic development, but also recognizing that we want to update, kind of comprehensively update our zoning and subdivision regulations, and those are certainly a tool that we can use to, again, support economic development in Burnsville. So in year one, those are the four kind of immediate tasks we've identified on that priority. The second is supporting investments in housing. Again, if you remember, the leadership playbook includes a housing inventory, which we're now calling like a housing infrastructure inventory. So that's just a baseline of let's understand a comprehensive analysis of our housing infrastructure in Burnsville. We think that's important as we get into years 2 and 3 to start to develop a housing assessment and ultimately get to us a housing policy, so we can put the tools and resources and support around our housing investments. So that's a year 1 task, is to complete that housing inventory. And then a couple of the other things that you know about, we're certainly are reviewing our rental licensing program to ensure we're leaning into the tools of that to ensure that multifamily property owners are investing in their properties and that they're meeting the requirements to ensure that they're providing safe and healthy housing in Burnsville. And then we are also, the council has recently amended the rental licensing code, and now we are working on implementing the changes of that. Again, the outcomes of those 2 ordinance in our program areas is to support investments in our rental housing stock in Burnsville. So those are the year 1 items in the housing category. And then the third thing, as I said, is really to focus on our service. And some specific things, we've hired a seasonal inspector. We know that one of our challenges, or one of the things that cannot go well, is we have these real seasonal spikes in service demands in the summertime related to construction and property maintenance. So this year we've hired a seasonal electrical inspection, again, just trying to reduce the lag time or scheduling time to provide more responsive services. We are talking to other communities that we know experience the same thing to see if there's a shared service model. There are some sharing of services across our building inspections team, so those are kind of the near-term things we're doing in year 1. And then we are also developing and implementing, we're doing that program review of code enforcement and reframing or refocusing that on that neighborhood services model. That's a key outcome of our service delivery and community development in 2023. And then as continue just to build our culture with a focus on, as I talked about, our employee development, our engagement, and our strengths. I know our team is strongly interested in doing that. And then years 2 and 3, you'll see, especially the economic development priority and the housing priority was really built sequentially, and that was intentional. As I talked a little bit about the housing inventory and how that work will be used to inform kind of years 2 and years 3 work. But that housing inventory will start to lead into a housing assessment, housing policy, but we think the economic development strategic plan can also do those same things of framing our priorities around economic development to drive then programs and tools of support in economic development and the council's ultimate policy direction on using some of the EDA Economic Development Authority dollars to support that investment. And then continuing also to build on our team development and our service development in years 2 and 3 as well, as continuing to keep a focus on that. Oh, I'm on the wrong, see, I've got different slides going here. My notes are on a different one. Thank you. Thanks. There we go. And so how are we meeting community needs? I think as we consider our resources of people and program dollars, I think the three things we will keep at the three criteria that we will use to evaluate that are, one, I would actually broaden that, like, ensuring that we're providing responsive and timely services to our community. Again, I talked about that can be a challenge in building inspections, building safety, and neighborhood services given the peak seasons. So we want to make sure that our resources are dedicated to ensuring that we're providing those responsive services that are neighborhood and community focused, as the council has talked about. And then again, the future community needs will also, as we talk about resources, want to focus on some of the outcomes of the housing and economic development plan to start to drive those decisions of frankly, the staffing resources or the people that will fill those positions will be based on some of that work that we're doing in the three most important things that we're working on. So that was probably quicker than 15 minutes. We kind of flew through that quickly. But Mayor and Council, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on our plan, our services, or what we're doing in community development.
Mine is a comment. I'm really glad that you're doing a housing inventory, because my sense is that we're focusing on rental on multifamily side of things, but I was trying to find, and I think it was a hard copy that came from the Met Council, in terms of how many housing units we have and how many of those units are rental, which includes multi-housing, but it also, there's a growth in single-family housing that have been have transferred to rental. And I'd like to understand that a little bit more, because I think, Council, it might be something that we need to take a look at from a policy level with regard to what is that balance. Because one of the things that I've been reading is that you have corporations, these investors that come in and purchase single-family dwelling and putting them into rental housing. So I can't wait to see the outcome of that, because that has a big impact on our housing stock and the balance between ownership and non-ownership. And what does that mean? The other part is with the increase in multifamily units has pressures on public safety. And when you see the correlation between all of the call out for fire, and it is always a vertical line every month. And I think in one of your weeklies you compared last year to this year with regard to calls, fire calls, or else you had it and I just went to, you say you can go and look at the.
Madam Mayor, to your point, every month there's, in Burnsville and Brief, there is updated kind of real-time statistics that you can compare.
And that has pressures on service, and that has a direct impact on the budget. Right, Jenny? So I look at all those things, but I'm really trying to understand how many investors are purchasing up a lot of our single-family homes and turning them into rental.
Elizabeth?
Yeah.
And I serve on the NLC, Economic Development and Housing Committee. The REITs are buying single-family homes like crazy. The problem nationally that I hear from a lot of people I work with are the REITs don't take care of those homes.
They don't.
They have a hard time getting a hold of them.
Yep.
And they start to control the market. The REITs actually own close to 85% of the housing in College City, or College Park, Georgia, which is where the Atlanta airport is. And so, I mean, it's happening all over. And but they control the market, which they start controlling the rents and that sort of thing, so.
Yeah,
And it's a
so-
discussion, how do you deal with that? But I'm not hearing a lot about public safety stuff on these committee at all, but the other
Yeah.
things I am hearing about.
Because that also came up at USCM, when you have all of these investor groups who are purchasing, and then it has a direct impact on the quality of
Yeah,
the
It's the
neighborhoods.
entire country it's happening in right now.
Yeah.
It's not,
Wasn't there legislation that was passed in Minnesota? Did they go over that?
I don't know if they
No.
did. I know they've talked about some different things
I
and how do
think
you
it-
deal with all that?
See if it passed or
No,
not.
it didn't have a hearing, Kara, it didn't have a
Didn't
hearing. Yeah,
Okay, so it was introduced but no hearing?
yeah,
Okay.
but
I lost track of it because there was
there's so many things that you're probably monitoring. But I just want to understand what's going on, especially when I get, it was a hard copy from the Met Council. Because all of this has a direct impact on our budget. So it'll be good to know.
Are those REIT properties then technically commercial properties?
Well, and I think that's the policy question, Vince, that we have to debate when it comes up, because
It's a
it's
business.
owned by a business, and it is a business. And then what does that mean in terms of the quality of the neighborhood? When Jeff and I get emails from residents of neighborhoods where they look around and it's mostly a lot of rental property or group homes.
Well, I know I dealt with a lot of investors, the mom and pops kind of things, and they do an LLC in just about every house they buy, so every one of them's actually owned by a business, even
Which
though
is
yeah.
the wise thing to do if
Yeah.
you're buying property, but
Right.
Yeah, but
we're not talking about the mom and pops.
Oh, no, we're
the-
talking
We're
about the,
talking
we're talking about the
about
big guys.
national
we're talking
investment
about the
firms.
REITs where you
how
you
would you
also were
divide
told,
that?
they don't take care of things. For them, it's just an income
We
on their,
kind of dealt with that,
you know,
didn't we?
If they're on the
It's
stock.
a line
if
item
they're on
in
the
their
stock
income
market, they're-
statement. Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, that's the only thing. So I'm anxious to see, and I know that on the things that are not going well is, and that you all are working on, is the outdated cumbersome zoning. You all are dealing with. So, but thank you. Anybody else has any questions? I just see all of this stuff, and for me, it's always about, what's the pressures on our budget on all of this? So, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, invitation.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Great job, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, you're really good.
Hey, for the record, we're teammates in community operations. I took 17 minutes, he took 13. He loaned me 2 of his minutes.
And Garrett,
We
you
came in-
didn't let me finish. Great job,
That's right.
Jeff and Garrett.
And thank you for the backup, Tom, over there for those.
Not
things.
that, not
was
that you were
great.
timing.
So glad you were here.
But I absolutely was.
Well, thank you very much. This is all very good, and I look at all of this stuff because it has a direct implication on the work that we're doing on the budget, so thank you. Also, it gives our community great insight into operations and what is it that each department does. So when they think, and all of this information to the members of our community is on our website. And it's also in the budget budget webpage. And it's in our
I'm retired.
agenda packet, and also on this meeting and all of those other meetings is also on our YouTube channel. So it's easy to access all of these things, so thank you. If there are no other questions or comments to be made to Garrett and Jeff? And there are no other comments from anyone else. We stand adjourned by acclamation. Thank you so much, everybody.